So it is a Transformer Tuesday today, and we have a whole bunch of pre-orders that just dropped from Hasbro Pulse as expected. They had a whole bunch of stuff planned for August 1st for a big pre-order release. And while there's not much new stuff in terms of information for us, just pre-orders so we could lock in for a lot of these new product, we do have some new information in relation to the Transformers Legacy Evolution Stunticon Menasor multi-pack. So we now have a price, a release date, and everything like that, some nice images. And it's going to be pretty much $189.99. Now, when you really break this down, it's right on the nose because commander classes that are manufactured today are $89.99. Deluxe classes, you're talking 4 of them when they're manufactured today, are $24.99. So times 4, that's $99.96. Simple math, it comes to about, $189.55. So you're pretty much spending, you're pretty much spending 45 cents more or less, for this set. You're getting the nice box, the brand new head sculpt on the breakdown, paint accurate schemes to the toy version. It is what it is. It's right on the nose, in my opinion, of the cost. It isn't major savings. It isn't overpriced. It's just right in that bubble, more or less. So this is going to be shipping out September 4th, 2023, and a lot of the other products that are pre-ordering today will be shipping out, some of them September, some of them in October of 2023, so stay tuned for that. Let's hope this all doesn't sell out right away. So next thing we're going to cover here is we talked about just a couple days ago the Q&A with the Transformers SDCC Q&A with Evan, and we talked about Studio Series Gamer Edition. Now we're going to talk about Studio Series everything else and a whole bunch of stuff planned for next year. And there's going to be multiple segments of this because there's just so much to break down and talk about. And we're going to do that here on the Transformers Slag podcast. So let's get into that. So this is Studio Series as a whole, keep in mind. So the first question they asked is, what's a possibility of Siege Astro Train getting released without all of that battle damage and weathering that the original Siege Leader class had? And Evan said, absolutely, maybe expect Astro Train appearing in the Studio Series, but with a much better animation accurate appearance. Now that's vague. Could be just a straight up repaint of it, but knowing Evan and the crew and how they kind of look at the John Warden era of stuff, which was pretty much Siege going into Earthrise and the early part of Kingdom, and even before that, when we get into the Combiner War stuff and the Prime Wars, which was all the John Warden era, they kind of want to do their own thing. They don't want to just repaint those old molds from that era of design. They kind of want to make their own. And so knowing Evan, we're probably going to get an Astro Train, and it's probably going to be a brand new tooling. And this is something I felt from the beginning when I saw the Siege one and when we got the Galaxy Shuttle afterwards. I feel that there's going to be something else in the future, and it's going to be better. And that's no offense to the Siege Astro Train, but it is what it is for that era. So stay tuned on that one. They had the question here: Titan class Nemesis seems to be opening the door to bigger female figures. What other characters would you like to do in the larger price points outside of deluxes? Maybe a Voyager Elita or a Leader class Striker. And then Evan said, we did an Elita before in the Voyager scale through Power of the Primes. One of the things that he would like to do is revisit Studio Series 86 RC as a Voyager class so that they have more budget so they can do a lot more with her and maybe even break down that backpack a little bit. So that's something where I imagine they're probably looking at even what the Masterpiece did through Yuki Yoshima of RC and going, hey, how could we take some of that tooling and engineering and, just the design of it and be able to put that into a Voyager class? And much like what Hot Rod would Voyager class, even though it's a deluxe figure, because it had that extra budget, you could do more with it, a little more articulation, a little more pieces and parts and paint. So that's pretty cool. But what it also says to me, it opens the door to the idea that Studio Series characters, 86 movie or otherwise, could be revisited in a few years. So that's very interesting. So, when you think about a lot of designs of characters, let's say Rise of the Beast being the best example, where the designs aren't 100% accurate to the animation models or the renders because of how things change with studios, they could be revisited a couple years later and make them more accurate when hindsight is 2020 after a movie comes out. So very interesting. Could mean, revisiting even some studio series stuff that kind of were hit or miss. So very, very interesting statement there. And speaking of Rise of the Beast, now we're going to get into a lot of studio series Rise of the Beast stuff here. First question here is, studio series Rise of the Beast Optimus Primal has no faceplate. Could there be an alternate head in the future on this one? Evan says, I would definitely say that it's in the cards for the future. They didn't have a faceplate on the original CAD models that were provided to them, although that's all they had. There was a mouth that was shown on that, and then, of course, when the movie came out, obviously it was otherwise. What about a Ape Links retool in the future? And then Evan said, yeah, we have to do him. He would be a retool, excuse me. He would not be a brand new mold. And that's honestly to be expected. If I had a personal opinion, I think take that Studio Series leader class Optimus Primal that we have through Studio Series and just give it a retool and call it Ape Links, and you're good to go. I think I'd be down for picking that one up. I think Ape Links is really cool. We have the question here, any interest in doing Rise of the Beast maximal releases in their original colors, as in cartoon colors, similar to the Platinum Edition Age of Extinction Dinobot pack from San Diego Comic-Con? And then they said they think it would be a fun exclusive, but they probably wouldn't fit within the Studio Series line. Me personally, I feel like that's something we kind of indirectly got through the mainline stuff. Obviously it isn't repaints, it's just new tooling that throws back more to the animation models. But I think we already kind of got our fix through that. And if those didn't sell well, then would people want to buy more expensive Studio Series stuff in Cheetor Season 1 colors? You know what I mean? So I don't know. That one's kind of a funky one. The question we got here, are there any plans for some larger Rise of the Beast characters like Stratosphere or even Unicron getting figures? Evan says, we get that a lot. Maybe even a HasLab of Unicron in like 10 years. That's a very bold statement. Since we want to see that robot mode first, Stratosphere would be fun, would be interesting to do as a Studio Series Titan class. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty bold statement. Like, no Unicron for 10 years. Hopefully that's not written in the sand, that one. I would just imagine it would be a retail thing. I'm pretty sure we'll get a Unicron in retail at some point. And I'm not saying like the movie one, but I'm just saying Unicrons in general. They got to use that trademark at some point, and they'll slide it in somewhere, even if it's a little PVC something or I totally see Jada telling Hasbro, hey, we're going to do a Jada Metals Unicron, 6-inch figure. Now you're good for 4 years. Or even Super 7 doing something like that. Question, HasLab projects have been exclusively War for Cybertron and Legacy related. Could Studio Series HasLab projects exist? Evan says it could. I would want to do it because there's a lot more difficult engineering, and with the licensing of vehicles, it would be a lot more fun. Like a triple changer drift, shafter, drop kick. I don't know if the fans would want that or react to it, but maybe even transit. See, you know what? I agree with his statement that for some of those more difficult designs that require a lot more budget, HasLab would be good. But on the flip side of it, how many people would want that? How many people would want to buy a triple changer that has also the upscale price of the HasLab, and then the investment and waiting a year to get it? To me, that's a really tough one. You got to put much more higher marquee characters in order to pull off something like that. Because, let's say that Shafter is a Voyager. They're going to not ask a Voyager price. They're going to ask something that's obviously in that leader commander class. So that's a tough one. Question, since Studio Series Commanders now exist, have you considered redoing Age of Extinction Grimlock as one of them, since he is so huge in the film? What about the other Dinobots? And then Evan says, the Dinobots, we've talked about it, but we think Commander class would be inaccurate as they would still be too small. You would need them to be almost a Titan class to scale with the Voyager Optimus, or possibly do Dinobots in the scale of Core class. So that's an interesting statement. I'm reminded of, they did that giant gimmicky Grimlock figure. I forget what it was called. I think it was called like Transform and Slash. I don't know what the name was, but I have it. I'm looking at it right now in my collection. That thing was huge, huge, huge figure. And the whole point of it was that it's this easy to transform giant Grimlock figure that also had an Optimus that could ride on its back, a little PVC figure. And that thing, if I had to scale it, was like a small deluxe, large scout class at the time. I wouldn't say core class, but more of a scout. And that thing's easily in that that Titan class kind of not price point, but size. Just, obviously it was a gimmicky toy. So I could see what he's getting at with that. It would probably have to be more of a Titan class, and then it would work with core class figures. So I could see that. It could kind of work. I get it. It already kind of existed. It's not the best figure, but it could, I could see where he's getting at with that, but probably on the chopping block more than anything. Let's see, what else we got here? Question, what led to the creation of the separate Rise of the Beast main line, specifically the Deluxes and the Voyagers? Why were some of their designs so different? So Evan says here, a kid-oriented line was exclusively based off of the concept art we were receiving in the early stages of the movie. For Studio Series, we got more of the defined CAD models, but then they even updated those as the movie was being produced, and our figures were already so far in production that they could not be changed. That's what I was just saying before with the Optimus Primal. It's just that's an issue where, as the movie was being developed and the renders were being done, character designs were being updated, and unfortunately, a lot of the toys didn't look like their character counterparts, and it falls into this next question here. Does Rise of the Beast Air Razor have a robot mode, or were the toy ones something you guys had to create? And then Evan says, we had to create the robot mode. We were not provided with any CADs of a robot mode. It was just the Eagle, and that is it. So that's an unfortunate thing. Air Razor was never in the cards to ever transform, and that robot mode that we have was a Hasbro created idea exclusively for the toy. So, question overall: what does the Studio Series figs? What Series figures would you most like to do if you could? And Evan says for the Bayverse, sizing and scale wise, a movie Ratchet needs to be done properly in Voyager. He doesn't like it as a deluxe. I kind of agree with him with that one. He was always one of the larger characters of that original 2007 Autobot crew. For Studio Series 86, he definitely wants to do Optimus Prime. Again, going back to the new crew wanting to redo some of those John Warden designs from Earthrise. So no surprise on that one. And I think it'll happen next year with the 40th anniversary. It's just a given. And for Rise of the Beast, he says he'd like to do more of Unicron's minions like the Scorponok done in Studio Series. So I guess, we got Scorpion-related characters with the Scorponok and the Sand Spear from the main line. So I guess now he wants to do like something more of a Studio Series flavored one, which would be interesting to see how they tackle that now that they have the hindsight of those designs. What do we got here? Would you guys be willing to do more Decepticon commanders? The commander class so far with Studio Series has been pretty Autobot heavy. And then he says, definitely a yes, we need to balance that out. And I agree with him. You know what, if they need to do a commander class, like take Studio Series 86 Astro Train. He's been a deluxe, he's been a Voyager, now he's a leader. You could do him as a commander class, and if he's scaled right, you could kind of make it that he could work well with those Decepticon, Kingdom, Legacy, and Studio Series 86 core classes. So you could kind of have him being stored in the back of the shuttle a la 86 movie. It'd be pretty cool. I would dig that. I think a lot of people would. But then everyone would want to see commander classes of the other triple changers, maybe. We will see. Astro Train, even though he's one of my favorite triple changers, has always been the one that's been so ambiguous when it comes to scale and size. So always a tough one to do. We have the question, Takara seems to be doing their own versions of some figures. Will they continue this? Fans like the variety of choices they can, especially when they're sold on Pulse. Definitely something they will see in the future. We can't provide input from the Hasbro toy design team, but that Rise of the Beast Optimus Primal, Takara Primal was their own thing done outside of Hasbro. So yeah, definitely going to probably see more of that in the future, maybe, if the demand is there. And the last question they have here is, will Studio Series feature Transformers 1 figures, which is that new animated movie next year? And then Evan says, certainly counts as something available for Studio Series. And I think that's a given at that point. It's a movie product. They'll probably do a movie main line, and then they'll probably do, again, a Studio Series line. And hopefully there'll be more of a good synergy with that of the CADs and the animation models with the studios. But that's it more or less for the questions. There's plenty more to come, but again, we'll break them down into different segmentations, and we'll discuss them later on throughout the weeks and stuff. So take care, guys. Hope you learned something today. And again, this was Studio Series stuff with Evan and the Hasbro Pulse team. And you've been listening to the Transformer Swag podcast. Enjoy your pre-orders today on Hasbro Pulse. I'll talk to you soon.